It's my great privilege to give such an important talk on behalf of Sri Narayana Guru College. This talk was originally intended to give a basic idea of writing a research paper to postgraduate students, and I still think that it is a useful thing that to train them to write papers at this stage. I strongly think that a thorough understanding of writing research paper will make you the future scientist to write high quality papers. My talk, Effective Approaches to Write a Successful Research Paper, today will allow you to learn some basic yet important and powerful things that you need to keep in your mind while writing or planning to write a research paper. So before getting into this talk, let me show you an incredible city of South Africa. So this is Cape Town, a city located at the southernmost part of the African continent and is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So the mountain that you are looking here, that is called as the Table Mountain, which is one of the 8 natural wonders of the world. So it got its name because of its shape, which is like a table. And the stadium that you're seeing here was the venue for the FIFA Football World Cup 2010. University of Cape Town, where I am currently working, is located in this beautiful city. This place is actually an amazing tourist spot. You should visit at least once in your lifetime. And to give you some memory of this city, the University of Cape Town, which is ranked first in Africa, and it is in top 20 among the world leading universities. And I hope you all know Nelson Mandela. This Robben Island, which is located in Cape Town, is the place where he was kept in prison for so many years. And if you're a cricket fan, you might know the sandpaper issue that came like few years ago by the Australian players. That happened in this stadium, which is also located in this Cape Town. So this will give you an idea of where this place is and what are the famous things that is happening around. So next, let's get into the business. So what is a research paper? So it is it's a means to take your research work to a public forum where researchers, academicians, students and common man get to read this. So what do they expect from this research paper? They expect an innovative, informative and interesting content with the maximum accuracy and clarity. So that's what we need, and that's what we should try to do while we write the paper. So we need to keep all these things in mind when we plan to write a research paper. We will see in the next slides how we are going to achieve this. So how to be effective. The whole talk will be having this content, so you can just have a of overall content what we are going to see today. So what are the requirements to write a paper, and the language, the flow of information, consistency, reference manager and proofreading and aesthetics. So these are the components that I'll be explaining you and how to make your paper look good. So first thing, you have to decide what paper you are going to write. There are different types of papers that you can communicate to a scientific journal, say short communications and full research paper. So if you have a very limited result, or if you have a result which is novel and which will be explored further and which is of very high importance, you can communicate that as a short communication. While you write a short communication, you don't need to give much explanation, no need for much background. You can just straight away go to the point and make a paper and send it, maybe like 2 pages, and with 1 or 2 result files, image files, that should be enough. Whereas for a full research paper, you need extensive methodology and review of literature and results and discussion and at least 4-5 images. So based on what you have and what your results, you have to decide which paper or what type of paper you are going to write. So if you are planning to write a review paper, if you're not doing a research paper, if you are doing a review paper, you should see if you are writing a review or a systematic review. There's definitely a difference. So review is a paper which focuses a specific question or which is having a specific aim, and that will try to address that aim by reviewing the other papers, other works. Whereas systematic review is completely different, where it accumulates the data and tries to interpret something from that. So apart from this, there are other modes of communication like letters to editor or short commentaries or mini reviews, editorial comments. So there are other types of communication that you can do. So at this stage, to start with, I think short communications, review and research paper, these are things that you may have to focus now. So first, decide what you are going to write. And next thing, the requirements. So before you even start writing a paper, just see what are the things that you require to write a paper, or what is the journal expecting you to do. So if you plan to write a paper, first read the author's guidelines. So every specific journal will have their own author's guidelines. You have to read them thoroughly. Most of us, if you are a beginner, we will not even bother what they try to say, and we won't even bother to read them completely. So read the author's guideline thoroughly and deliver what they ask specifically. Next thing, each journal has got its own structure. So know what the journal is looking for, in what structure they want the whole paper. Third, which is the most important thing, which we always ignore this, but trust me, cover letter is the first thing that editor reads. When you submit a paper, this is the first thing that editor reads. So we always leave the writing of cover letter to the last minute. So we finish all writing of manuscript and compile everything, and cover letter will be written only when you are submitting your paper. Like you open the login and then only you'll write the cover letter. So that is the main mistake every one of us are doing. Please note that cover letter is the first thing and four important things that we need to focus on. So when you try to write a cover letter, just don't try to write that we are submitting so and so paper, and to your journal the authors don't have any conflicts to declare, and we hope that you will find this paper suitable to publish in your journal. So don't just write this alone, because cover letter is like a one-page thing which you have a chance to speak to the editor direct. So let me tell you what are things that you can include in your cover letter to impress the editor, because most of the papers that we submit will come straight away rejected by the editor because he might not like what we are sending. So this is the first and best way impress the editor the first place. Alright, give an outline of your paper. When you begin, just tell them that our paper describes the anti-cancer potential of so and so drug in this cancer, so they might get what you actually have done. And secondly, highlight the novel significant results. Say that your drug is like highly effective against chemotherapy resistant cells. So that will give them idea that how important the work is. And next, you can also highlight some of how important your work is to the research community. If you are developing a drug, say I'm working with the cancer now, so all the exams that I quote is mostly from cancer perspective. So you can tell that this drug will overcome the other existing drugs because this has less toxicity and high specificity, something like that. So mention the impact straight away in the cover letter. And lastly, tell them how it is suitable. Tell them what they are covering the scope, how they are covering the scopes of anti-cancer, and tell them how your paper is also lies in the same scope. So tell them how your paper fits exactly in the scope. So you have to include these many points in your cover letter to impress the editor first. Next, coming to the structure of the paper. So I have drawn a general structure which most of the journal accept, but there could be some variations because some journals might ask the materials and methods to be given at the last, or some might ask you to combine the research and discussion. So there can be minor variation in this, but let me discuss with this general template. So don't forget to include graphical abstract and highlights, because recently most of the journals are expecting a graphical abstract and highlights. So highlights, when you give highlights, just tell them what are the important findings that you have in your paper. And graphical abstract should be like a whole picture, like an infographic picture that explains them the whole research. And as you know, a paper should have an abstract, an introduction, and materials and methods, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. So you might know these components are essential in a paper. So I have picked some important content from the Elsevier page. So I'll be presenting you what you need to put in each of these components. First, title. Title is next thing that the editor is going to read. When it comes to title, it makes a huge impact on the acceptance of paper and circulation of your work. I mean, to how this work will be available, how people search for the keywords, and how will they get the work, and how it is getting cited. So your title will decide all these things. So you have to take very immense care when you name title, when you give a title, and do not use complicated terms, and do not make the title too long, and make it concise and convey what the paper, what the research that you have. And next thing is abstract. So abstract is, it should be short, and remember, don't put all the research that you have in your abstract, because most of the journals have word limit to abstract, maybe 250 or 200 something. So you cannot put so much of background in this. Don't tell the background. Don't tell that cancer is that thing, it is the worst leading mortality, and that thing, this thing. Don't tell all the basic background, because definitely they know that they know that the disease will have so much background. Just go to the point. Just tell the problem, what is the gap, or what is the problem that is persisting now, and just tell how you are going to address the problem. That's what you have to include in this. And you can in the materials and methods section, you don't have to explain any methods, any materials. Just tell them we obtained these results by using Western blotting or QRT-PCR or fluorescent microscopy, so on so technique. Just mention the technique, so that when someone reads the abstract, they know that they are looking for this type of results. So don't elaborate anything on the methodology or materials. Just mention the technique. We did so and so assay, and we performed these experiments. Next, you have to use at least 40% of this abstract to explain your results. Don't discuss the results. Just tell them what are the results you got, and just give a brief conclusion, like an overall conclusion of the abstract. So this is the second place where the editor reads. If your cover letter is not good, and if your abstract is not good, then this itself will decide. It will give an idea to the editor to make a decision. Both are poorly written, then the editor will lean towards rejecting the paper at this stage. If a paper can pass through the editor, and if it goes to reviewers, definitely you are getting benefit out of it. So we have to try to first impress editor. That's what we have to do now. And next thing, introduction. So when writing the introduction, pick out things that are most relevant to your work. Do not include all the other things which is unnecessary or irrelevant, and explain why you have taken that study, and what are the backgrounds done in that, and what are the issues you have, and how you are going to address them in the introduction. And also try to avoid all the filler words and filler sentences. It will only irritate the editor or reviewer when they read them. And also avoid unwanted excessive citation. So some might think that having more citation, having more references will make the paper good, but that's not true. So try to avoid unwanted references. If 2-3 people have said the same thing, cite only one person who is more recent or more relevant. So in that way you can avoid other citations, and try to avoid redundancy. So if 5 people have told the same thing, don't quote all the 5 points. Just tell them in a cumulative way and just move on. The next point is materials and methods. So this is the important thing that the reviewers will look into, because they have to see how genuinely you have conducted the experiments and how true your results are. So this is a place where they will find if you have done the experiment or not. So when you are trying to explain a new method, you have to be very, very descriptive, and if it is a very important technique to your result, your research, you have to explain that also clearly. And if it's a general protocol like DNA isolation or protein harvesting, all these things you can just mention a reference and you can move on. You don't have to explain them thoroughly. And importantly, try to include the ethical clearance. If you're working with animal models or human samples, try to mention the ethical clearance number, because that is definitely what the reviewers will look into, or the editor will look into. And also try to see inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and number of subjects that you have tested, and age group, or whatever is necessary you can include. And also you have to mention the manufacturer's name and how the statistical tests are done. So all these things should be included. And one important thing at this place, when you write your introduction and materials and methods, there are more chances that you get plagiarism here, because you will be citing the previously reported papers and previously reported materials and methods. This will allow you to introduce so much of plagiarism. At this point, if you can reduce plagiarism in these two sections, then your paper will not have too much of plagiarism. So take immense care when you write these two sections to not to have so much of plagiarism. Even self-plagiarism is also not allowed. So try to rephrase your sentences and paraphrase your paragraphs so that it doesn't overlap. But there will be some sentences and some words we cannot rewrite so much. So maybe like 10% plagiarism is allowed in a paper. So try to give that 10% in this section so you can get away with this. And next thing, the important and heart of this a paper is results and discussion. Make your results and discussion very concise but informative, and focus on the important parts. Don't just focus on one single result or one single image. Don't play around that. So just focus at overall results. I mean every result. And remember, discussion should be like I'll just tell what should be done in the discussion, the next slide. And references. When you're making references, you try to include the current literature. Even if you're not including them, the reviewer or the editor will ask you to include the current literature, because they want to know what is happening until this point and what you have done more than that. That's what it's all about. So you have to include the up-to-date literature. Try to avoid using the very old literature, the literature from the 1970s and 80s, because people cannot actually go and check those papers. So try to cite the papers which is more relevant and more current. And there is a reference management software that you can use to simplify and minimize your workload. I will be talking about that in the next slides. So now you know what is actually required and what you have to do to write a scientific paper. Now there is a technique or methodology we can use to construct a scientific paper which will be effective and also easy. First thing, generating a preliminary rough draft. First, what you have to do is, based on the structure of your manuscript, you have to draft an outline, include all the subsections, and write key points under the appropriate heading, so that you know what should come in each materials and methods. You can tell what other methods you should mention, or what materials you should do. An introduction, you can tell what are the important papers that you have to mention, and results, you can tell what are the results you have to do. Also, you have to see what figures you have. At this point, you have to you'll have your heart in this structure. A skeleton should be there at this point. And after writing all your key points and key images, you have to circulate it with your mentor or the students or colleagues or your co-authors, so that to see if everybody is in agreement with this outline, because a same result can be interpreted as in two different ways. So the mentor and the students should not be having a two different idea, and while they prepare they might have written in a different way. So when you combine them, it won't sit properly. So what you have to do is, when you make a very preliminary skeleton, you circulate it to everyone and get the consent, or if there is some comments, improvise. So at this point, before you even put lots of effort, just make this skeleton to get an idea of your peers and co-authors, so that you don't have to waste your time in when the manuscript is in the advanced process. So at this stage, it's very preliminary. You can change your results. Whoever is right or accurate can change the results on the outline. Based on that input, you can come to a conclusion. And at this point, this paper will have an overall direction. Say if my drug is acting this way and it is activating 1, 2, 3 pathways. So one might have, okay. So at this stage, everybody should be clear on what the paper is having. The next is to take the draft to a next level. So there is a specific sequence that you have to follow. So once your outline is ready, you know in what direction the paper is going to go. So the first thing I will write, or anyone should start writing, is the materials and methods, because you might have done all the experiments by now when you put an outline. So you know all the materials and methods, and this will not change whatever the results or discussion will come. So materials and methods is the first one that you can start, and actually this one will apply even if you're writing a thesis. This one will apply. So write the materials and methods first, then go to figures, because after materials and methods you have to do the results. Before going to results you have to do figures, because figures are the ones which will decide your result. So first take immense care to complete the figures and figure legend. Do the figure and write at the bottom what the figure explains. What does it say? Is it activating so much, or does it activating without a significant level? So write all those things under the figure. So that will be the second step. And third step, write the result now. So you have the figures now, so you can expand all those figures in the result section briefly, and try to conclude give a brief concluding statement for every result. Say if I have done an assay on cell death pathways for my anti-cancer drug, so then I will say that okay, this anti-cancer drug induces this and this markers. So at the bottom, so hence the drug so and so is inducing apoptosis and necroptosis pathways in these cell lines. So that one concluding statement will be a good thing to do. Each and every paragraph or each and every result should have a small concluding statement. Next, go to the discussion. So now you know thoroughly about the results. So it's a time to write a discussion. When you write a discussion, first thing, just go, first paragraph should be a summary of the results, and next how important that result is, how important finding an anti-cancer drug is, and how it is filling the previous gaps. What are the lacunae that was existing previously, and how you are filling it, and how this can be used in future. So that should be your next paragraph. And don't forget to discuss your contraindicating or unexpected or negative results. Don't try to escape the results, because if you are escaping that, then that definitely will attract the reviewers' attention, because they know that you are purposely escaping from the results. So try to address them. Try to say what it is, and this could be because of that or because of this, and this needs a further investigation, something like that. So don't try to escape if you have a negative result or less significant result. Don't escape from that, definitely address them. And then at the end you can go to the introduction. So when after you've done your result and discussion, definitely you know what your paper is having, and based on that you can write about the cancer and the drugs and what are the disadvantages of the drugs and how you are going to address them. So this is a nice sequence. If you write, you can finish the paper quickly, because I'm telling you, I hope you all might have experience with this. If you start writing a paper and if you start introduction, definitely there will be a block. You cannot write anything on the introduction if you start writing them here. That's why I'm telling you, just use this order, then the introduction will be like very familiar, and you know what to write and you know what to avoid and what to exclude. Alright. The next thing is language. So most of the non-English speaking countries, if they write a paper, definitely there will be so much problem with the language. The editors and the reviewers, they all have to go deal with this. Most of the non-English speaking countries, they try to use English editing agencies and consulting services to fix that English and language, but I don't think that's so necessary if you follow these simple things. So always try to keep the language very simple. This drug induces apoptosis and this kills the cells. So try to make a very simple sentence, and that will serve the purpose, because it's not an essay writing competition to use complicated words, right? And so the word has got inbuilt dictionary, it can correct the grammars easily. So try to correct the obvious grammatical errors. The word itself will show in blue or red lines, so try to correct them. So that will make your paper look better. And avoid spelling mistakes. As I told you, if there is a spelling mistake, the word itself will pick it up, so it will give the dictionary will give the right spelling. So try to avoid them. Still, when I was reviewing papers last week, the heading itself was having a mistake. So you know that what impression that gives to a reviewer. So try to avoid the spelling mistakes. And use of tense, the present tense and past tense and future tense, use it appropriately in the manuscript. Don't mix and don't talking past tense in some place and future in some place and present, that will actually distract the reader. And last one, split the paragraphs technically. If you are writing results, you can go one paragraph for each figure, but if you are writing your introduction or discussion, that's where the problem comes. So split it clearly, and when you're ending a paragraph, just try to give some idea or some lead to the next paragraph so that the continuity will be flowing through. The next thing is flow of information. So when although your English is fine and the scientific content is nice, if you can't tell the story in nice flow, then the reviewer will not be able to understand the paper. Although you got nice results with high technology techniques, if your flow is not right, if you can't tell the story in a nice way, then it won't you can't sell this paper. So always try to have a nice flow of information and try to frame the sentences in your own mother tongue. That will definitely help you to write this paper with a nice flow. And next is, when you are citing literature, try to keep the order, take the chronological order seriously. Just try to tell them what happened from older year and what is happening at present. So go in that order. And also when you're trying to explain information about gene or a pathway or a cycle or biochemical thing, so try to go in order. Say you got what is happening in microbes and what's happening in plants, what's happening in animals, and come to humans if you're working with the human sample. So always try to follow some same order, and don't talk about humans here and don't talk about plants and animals and microbes. So that will definitely lead to confusion. So always try to follow this order. You can go from this order or from this the reverse order. You can follow anything, but always go from smaller organism to a complex organism. Then if you're writing a book chapter or a thesis, try to follow the table of contents. Whatever you have given in the beginning, try to follow that same order so that the readers will not get confused, and keep up the order. And next thing is use of subsections. If you are writing a thesis or a paper or review paper, you might have to include more subsections under one section. So don't try to keep on increasing this number. If you are going 1.2 or 1.2, that should be fine. Don't keep on increasing these numbers, that will only irritate the readers. So try to use subsections wisely. And these two are like basic things. Try to make your writing interesting and try to retain the attention of the reader without introducing the grammatical errors and all these mistakes. Next thing is consistency. Although your writing is nice and your flow of information is nice, the consistency plays a big role. Most of us will be able to write a paper nicely and give the results clearly, discuss everything nicely, but we miss this consistency. This might look like a simple thing, but actually it will make a big impact. Say if you are confusing the tense, and if you are having a wrong spacing, some places 1 and some places 2, and not properly placed paragraph, remember the paper will go to review without all this editing. When it is published, the editorial office will do all this editing and they'll make it as nicely formatted. But when it goes to a reviewer, the paper will go as it is. So try to concentrate on all these things. Spacing and fonts. Sometimes we'll have a different fonts because the computer that you're working, it might change sometimes we copy and paste it from somewhere. So having different types of fonts and sizes also will not make the paper look good. And next, headings. If you are having a big subheading, then make it bold, and when it goes to next level, make it bold and italicized, so something like that. But make sure that you are following a consistent order. And this is a problem again. So to use a British English or American English, you can use whatever you are familiar with, but some journals might specifically ask you to follow British English or American English. So be clear in what you're using and use only any one of them. And next things, units. So using units will if you are not consistent with this, there will be so many confusions. Some people will use micromolar, mu and m. For that, some people will use U and M, or in some people they spell out micromolar. So if you keep using or switching all these things, then that will lead to so much of confusion. And next thing is names, names of genes and proteins. Some genes and some proteins will have two different names, abbreviated name or expanded name. So try to see what you're using. In the first place, when you use a descriptive name, expanded name, use it and give the abbreviation in the brackets. Then try to use the same abbreviation in the same format throughout your paper. Don't keep on switching the names between abbreviated and expanded. That will lead to so much of confusion. And next thing is citation. So the authors that you cite inside your paper, be consistent with that. And technical terms. Say if your drug is upregulating or downregulating a marker, you have to be consistent with the word upregulating. Don't explain some places it reduces, it decreases, it depletes. Don't keep on using all these alternate terms for one technical term, which is very, very important. And also be consistent with the nomenclature. So although your paper is nice, if you are not losing this consistency, using this consistency, the editor or the reviewer will think that you haven't put enough attention or care to write the paper. So that will lead to a negative impact on your decision. Next thing. So this reference manager, these are reference managers. You can, these are like apps actually, Windows or for MacBook. So I specifically use Mendeley and I've used EndNote. So what they do is, I hope few of you might know what they do. But for the beginners, I'm telling you, these are the apps that you can download and install in your computer, and you can add as an extension to your Word file. So whenever you write your paper, you can just click this Mendeley and you can cite the search for the paper, and you can press cite, and that will be inserted into your manuscript automatically. And when you put the reference, everything will get updated automatically. Everything will be listed. So I remember when I was writing my master's thesis, I have to copy and paste all the references by manually, and I have to fix all those styles and things. So now everything is made easy. Trust me, using this reference manager will reduce like 50% of your time. And there are tutorials available to see how to use Mendeley or how to use EndNote. So it's not a very complicated thing. They're very easy. Once you know how to use them, then you know the route. The last thing, proofreading. Yes. So once you have done all the work, and try to read, give to some people who is a non-technical person or some person who doesn't have any idea about the work, give it to them to proofread, and they can check the for spelling and punctuation and formatting and accuracy. And in addition to this, you can also cross-check these cited references, because sometimes these Mendeley and these reference managers will miss or they can duplicate the references. There are some disadvantages. So you can cross-check the cited references and figures. If you have cited the figures properly and explained them or given the legends properly, you can cross-check them, and the correctness of figures, because you might mistakenly can cite the same figure in two different sections. So cross-check them. That will give you a nice give the reviewers and editors a nice impression. So last one, once you have done all these things, try to increase your aesthetic value of your paper, and try to align the text and figures neatly. So that will tell the editor and reviewer how much care you have taken to make the paper ready. And also always try to give a better image, not a pixelated images. Give a better image and properly cropped, properly maybe bordered. Give a nice image. Okay, so this is what we have done. So to summarize the talk, work based on the requirement. What is required for a paper, and structure the paper properly, and prepare an outline and come to an agreement with the mentor and the students. Write the paper in the mentioned sequence. It will definitely help you, and give importance to language and flow of information and consistency, and use the reference manager effectively, and also try to proofread the paper and touch up the paper with nice alignment and stuff. Okay, with that I conclude my talk. I hope this might have helped you or given you some idea to improvise your writing. And I would like to thank at this moment Dr. M. Ilangovan, the principal of Sri Narayana Guru College, and Dr. Rati and Dr. Vijay Chitra, and the SNGC management and organizing committee, and also University of Cape Town for funding my research, and Wikipedia and other web sources where I got my information. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, you can go. I'll try to answer.